In the paranoid shadow of the Cold War, a dark line was crossed. A line where medical science twisted into psychological torture. This happened not in a distant gulag, but inside a stone mansion on the slopes of Mount Royal in Montreal. This was the Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric hospital that became the stage for one of North America's most sinister historical chapters. While the world braced for nuclear Armageddon, the CIA waged a quieter, more insidious war. The race to mastermind control. Desperate to know if a human mind could be erased and rewritten, American intelligence turned its gaze north to Canada. There, they found a willing partner in a man of immense prestige, Dr. Ewan Cameron. Cameron was a giant in his field, a man who would eventually lead the World Psychiatric Association. Yet, his theories on mental health were built on a terrifying foundation. He believed that to cure a mind, you first had to destroy it. He theorized that illnesses like schizophrenia were caused by faulty thought patterns that needed to be completely wiped clean, leaving a blank slate upon which a healthy personality could be drawn. The CIA, operating under the now infamous coding name MKUltra, saw Cameron's work as the key to the ultimate weapon. They imagined a way to create perfectly compliant agents or extract any secret from an enemy. Through a front organization, they secretly funneled money into the Allen Memorial Institute, and in doing so, turned unsuspecting Canadian citizens into guinea pigs for a living nightmare. The people who walked through the doors of the Allen were not spies or soldiers. They were ordinary people. They were housewives struggling with postpartum depression, businessmen battling anxiety, and students grappling with minor emotional issues. They came to this prestigious institution seeking help, placing their trust in its reputation. What they received instead was a brutal process. Kayet, depatterning. It began with something he termed sleep therapy. Patients were placed into drug-induced comas, not for a day or two, but for weeks, sometimes even months on end. Nurses were given strict orders to wake them only for meals and bathroom breaks. They were kept in a perpetual twilight state, perpetually disoriented, confused, and utterly helpless. But this chemical slumber was merely the prelude. To truly shatter the mind, Cameron turned to electroconvulsive therapy, using it with an intensity that violated all known medical ethics. A standard treatment back then might involve about 110 volts applied for just a fraction of a second. Cameron subjected his patients to shocks that were 20, 30, even 40 times more powerful. And he didn't do it once. He did it multiple times a day. This became known as the Pageroso method. The sheer force of the electricity was devastating. It induced violent, grand mal seizures, so powerful they could fracture a patient's spine. More insidiously, it stripped away their memories, piece by piece. Patients would awaken from these sessions not knowing their own names, unable to recognize their families, sometimes even forgetting how to use a knife and fork. They were reduced to an infantile state, often incontinent, and unable to speak. Their previous identities, their very selves, were effectively incinerated by raw voltage. They had become the blank slates Cameron desired. Once the mind was wiped, the second phase began. This was Kajit, psychic driving. The goal now was to reprogram the empty vessel. For up to 16 hours a day, patients were forced to listen to looped audio messages. Speakers were sometimes hidden under their pillows, or, more grotesquely, strapped to their heads inside modified football helmets, ensuring the sound was inescapable. These messages weren't positive affirmations. They were often negative, repetitive, and abusive, repeating phrases hundreds of thousands of times to hammer new thoughts deep into their defenseless subconscious. To prevent any form of resistance, to ensure total compliance, the patients were often paralyzed with curare, a drug that freezes the muscles. They were then flooded with powerful hallucinogens like LSD. Trapped in a chemical prison, unable to move or escape the psychedelic visions, their minds were left wide open while the endless, droning voices drilled into them, hour after hour, day after day. The ultimate tragedy of the Montreal experiments lies not just in their cruelty, but in their complete and utter failure. Dr. Cameron never succeeded in reprogramming a human mind. He never built a new, healthy personality. He only ever succeeded in destroying lives. When the CIA funding eventually dried up and the agency retreated back into the shadows, the victims were abandoned, left to pick up the shattered pieces of their realities. Many suffered from permanent, irreversible amnesia. They never regained the memories of their children's births or their wedding days. Husbands and wives became strangers. They had to relearn the most basic life skills, forever haunted by the trauma of torture that had been disguised as medicine. It took decades for the full truth to crawl into the light. Decades to reveal how the Canadian government and the American CIA had colluded, sacrificing the minds of innocent citizens on the altar of Cold War paranoia. The Allen Memorial Institute still stands on Mount Royal today, a beautiful building with a horrifying past. It remains a grim monument to a time when the frantic search for security was used to justify the complete erasure of the self. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's hidden corners.